Hello and welcome to my channel. If you've been here before, welcome back. My name is Alfonso Peluso and I'm an associate teaching professor in the College of Architecture at IIT, the home of the legendary Mies van der Rohe, and I'm adjunct faculty at Columbia College Chicago in the Interior Architecture program. Shout out to all my students. I hope you're having a great day. It is a pretty nice day here in Chicago. It's winter, but it's not too cold out, so that's always good. I hope the weather is great where you're at. All right, today we are going to look at a SketchUp Lumion workflow, and at the end of this video, we're going to have something like this. We're going to start with nothing, and we're going to have something like this at the very end. So, yeah, buckle in because we're in for a ride. All right, before we jump into the tutorial, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, what are you waiting for? Click on subscribe, click on the down arrow to receive all the notifications. If you are into architecture, interior architecture, computational design, there is something here for you. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on anything. Also, help me get to 14,000 subscribers. That would be great. So click on the subscribe button there. Also, connect with me on Instagram at my first name Alfonso _ my last name Peluso. See what I'm up to. See what AI videos I'm making. See what my students are creating. All right, I'd love to connect with you there. Help me get to 3,000 followers. That would be awesome. All right, so let's jump into this tutorial. So this is what we're going to have at the end, and we're going to start from nothing. So we're just going to start out in SketchUp. All right, so just a little bit about what we're going to do today. So it's a SketchUp Lumion workflow. So SketchUp is a 3D modeling software, as you probably know, and Lumion is a 3D rendering software. All right, it's a standalone software. Lumion is free for students, so that is awesome. Let's hope it stays that way. All right, so we're going to start from scratch in SketchUp, and we're actually going to bring in an AutoCAD file. So not a big deal if you don't have an AutoCAD file. You can kind of just make the floors and the walls and the ceilings. We're just making some real generic objects. All right, so I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Import, and I'm going to import my AutoCAD drawing. And I'm just going to accept the defaults. All right, so here's my AutoCAD drawing. All right, let's take a look at it. Not too much here. All right, so the first thing we're going to build is we're going to build the floor. So we're going to do this by just using a draw tool. And I'm just going to use the shortcut line. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to snap to all these little corners. So I'm going to zoom in and out so I make sure that I'm, getting this right. I'm just going to go across there. I'm going to ignore that window for now. So today's workflow is going to be pretty intense on the computer, so you're going to hear my computer fan kicking in. All right, P for push-pull. And I'm going to pull that up, and I'm going to type in 6 inches. Enter. All right, so there is our floor. Okay, so we're going to model some walls now. Before we do that, we have to make sure that we make things a component. Super important in SketchUp before you move on from object to object. You have to make it a component or a group, but I like a component. And if you don't make it a component, it's going to cause a headache down the road, so you got to remember that. All right, so spacebar will get you back to select, and I can select my entire floor. I didn't select the full floor plan, or else that would get highlighted. So I selected my entire floor, press the shortcut G, which is not group, but component. I'm going to type in floor. Okay, and that's my floor, and I'm going to create that. Now I'm going to go ahead and create my walls. So I'm going to use my draw tool again, or my line tool. So I'm going to press L on the keyboard to draw a line, and I'm going to draw my walls. Spin around here. Okay, so that's my entire wall there. All right, so P for push pull, and I'm going to pull that up 10 feet. So just pulling it up and then typing in 10 feet. And I'm going to make a component out of that. So I'm going to press the space bar. I'm going to select that person, delete, it just gets in the way. All right, so I'll make this, so I'm going to select all of that and G on the keyboard, and that's going to be my wall -01. Okay, and I'm going to swing around here and make this other wall. So the shortcut L, go ahead and draw that. So I know I'm finished when it makes the little white fill in there. So P for push pull, drag this up. Come on, drag on up. Type in 10 feet. All right. So we have that. Now let's let's introduce Lumion into this. Let's talk a little bit about Lumion since it's our SketchUp Lumion workflow. So I'm going to go ahead and save this file. So this is our SketchUp Lumion. This is our SketchUp file. All right, so I have Lumion open, so I'm going to go on over to Lumion, and this is the welcome screen for Lumion. So what you want to do in Lumion is you want to just create new. Now, there's nothing intimidating about Lumion. It's a very simple rendering software. That's really what it's for. It's not for modeling, it's for rendering. So it's very simple. It has a very simple interface. There's not a whole lot you have to dig through, but it's a very powerful rendering tool. So let's jump into it. Let's go to create new, and we're going to create a plain environment. All right, so this is our plain environment. So there are two ways we can work with Lumion and SketchUp. One is we could live sync our model, and another would be just to import the SketchUp model. So let's first look at import. So if I go down here to place, this window pops up in the upper left and it says imported models, and I would click on import new model, and I would just go ahead and choose my Lumion, not my Lumion, my SketchUp file. I would go and choose my SketchUp file, and I would just open that. So SketchUp is one of the file types you can import. So you see a bunch of these here. So I'm not going to import it. I'm going to live sync it. And I've just been really super hopeful with the live sync from SketchUp to Lumion that it works well. Sometimes there's some bugs with the live sync. So if live sync isn't giving you the desired results you want, you can import the model like I just showed. So let's look at LiveSync. So let's go back to SketchUp. So I've installed the plugin LiveSync for SketchUp. Lumion LiveSync for SketchUp. So you could search that up on the web. Lumion LiveSync for SketchUp. You can search it up, download it, and install it. And you get this little toolbar here with the Lumion logo. And there's a play which turns on the LiveSync. So I click that play. And then if I head on over to Lumion, you see that my model comes in. So there it is. And it's wonderfully live synced or sunk I don't think it's sunk, but it's synced. All right, so it's live synced to my Lumion file. So there it is right there. And I just want to show something really quick. If I go to materials, so this is a little paintbrush here in the lower left for materials, and I hover over this, it just says it's all default material, that it's all on one layer, or it's seen as one object. And we'll be able to change that when we start to look at materials. But since we brought this in, let's go ahead in the upper left and we're going to click on Edit Layer. And we're going to name this 3D model. So this is going to be our 3D model. So we'll have a 3D model layer, a furniture layer. We didn't put any people in the one that I showed you, but maybe we'll get to that. We'll see how this video goes and how long it's going to take to do all this. So I better be quiet and hurry up. All right, so that's our 3D model. So this is the upper right, you see LiveSync, it's green. You could stop the LiveSync here to save on computer resources, or you can stop it over here in Lumion, either one. All right, so I'm just going to stop that LiveSync while we're working on it. All right, so not too much to make. We're going to make some mullions. I don't think I made a component out of this wall, so I'm always thinking before I move on that, it's something I have to do. So I'll type in G, call this wall -02, because not making a component creates a mess down the road. All right. Now we're going to make a mullion, which is a window frame, so that we have that right here. So we're going to go ahead and make that window mullion. I'm going to use my line tool. I could use a rectangle. I'm going to use my line tool and go ahead and make that mullion. Okay, pull that up. I'm going to pull that up 10 feet. So it's right at the top of the wall. It should be, if everything. All right, so my one wall, I made it a little bit too tall because I didn't type in 10 feet right away, and I'm seeing that happen here. So I can easily pull that wall down. So I'm going to want to pull that wall down. So I have to open up the component. So I'm going to press my space bar, double click on it. It opens up the component. I can go to my push-pull if I get my orientation right. And I can pull it right there, right? It snaps. I get this really nice snap. If I can get that snap again, it's a little tricky. There we go. All right. So that snapped to that top of the wall. So that was good to verify that. And then just to get out of it, I just press the space bar, double click on the green or gray dashed line, and that closes that component up. All right, so we have this mullion, which is a component that we can just basically take and we could copy it. Now, I want to put my mullion, I'd really like to put my mullions on top of the floor, and we'll get to that in a second. But let's go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to select it. I'm going to press M for move, and oh yeah, look at that. You guys are probably yelling at me to say, hey, you didn't make a component out of it, and I didn't. So let's go ahead and do that. Space bar for the selection tool. We'll go ahead and select it. G, I'm going to call this mullion, and we'll click on create. All right, now I'll go back to move, and I'm going to go ahead and move this, and I'm going to hold down my control key. Control key makes a copy of it, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that. All right, let's keep copying it. So I'll go to the move again. Oops. Got to get the mullion selected here. There's a doorway that goes across there. I think I'm going to ignore the door and actually put a mullion there. So let's see. Trying to get a midpoint. So about right there looks good. I'll keep on copying this with the control key. So I'm having to keep pressing and releasing the control key. I don't know about you, but I have to. Okay. So there is our wall, and we're going to put a glass frame in that. Now typically you want your mullions to be sitting on top of your floor. You want your glass to be sitting on top of your floor. So when I drew that floor, I didn't do a great job drawing it. I went in and didn't go across the mullions. So I'm going to redraw that floor. So I'm going to press the space bar, select that floor, and then Shift Control I is the inverse selection. And then when I right click, I got to make sure I right click over my object. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose hide. Okay, and then I'm going to select my floor component and I'm going to delete that. It's just going to be faster to redraw it. So I need to get my drawing back. I'm going to go to Edit, Unhide, Unhide All. And I'm going to select that floor plan. And I'm going to right click it and right click on it and choose lock, so that it doesn't hide, when I select everything. So when I select my floor, so I'm going to select my floor. Oh, and I've already deleted the floor. Okay. So I'm just going to select everything and I'm going to right click over the wall and choose hide. And then my floor plan stays out there. So that's a little trick. All right, so let's get this floor drawn correctly. So line, and I'm going to start right here. And I'm going to go around here to here. And I'm not going to go back like I did. I'm going to go across. So across that whole face. That's going to give me the floor that I want. We're ignoring that window. We're going here to here, all the way across. And that should give me a plane that I can press P for push pull, drag it up 6 inches. I'm just typing in 6 inches. And now that's the floor I want. I can press the space bar, select it all, type in G, call this floor. Let's see what happens because we already have a floor because we made a floor. Component with that definition already exists. You want to replace that definition with your new component. Yes, I do. All right, so now we're back in business. And we could go to Edit, Unhide, Unhide All. All right, here's our little model. And these mullions are going down into the floor when they should just be sitting on top of it. Let's go ahead and move it up. So always good to look at how to do these things. So let's press the space bar. Let's select all those. I'm going to press M for move. And I'm going to move those up. Okay, so they're going to be taller. Now this is the great reason why I use components, because if I press my space bar and I double click on one and then I go to P for push pull and I'm going to pull this down and they're all going down. They all move down. So that's the great thing about a component. And if you didn't want them to all go down, let me press the space bar and double click on this gray dashed line. If I didn't want them to all go down, oh, Rita. Rita's here. Hi, Rita. That's my dog, Rita. It must be something outside, like a squirrel or a bird that she's barking at. Welcome, Rita. All right. Sorry about that. Hope you don't mind when Rita joins us. All right. So those are our mullions. Those are nicely in place. And if I didn't want it to be part of my component, meaning where one changes, they all change. If I wanted one to be unique, I would just select it, right click on it, and then I would go in and choose Make Unique. All right, so let's take a mullion and let's copy it over to the other side and then place those. All right, so we'll see what the best way to do this is. So I'm going to select one. I'm going to type M for move, Start to drag that over, press and release the control key for copy, spin around. Now I can't see my mullion, so I'm going to just drop it here, and I'm going to select that floor with the space bar, right click over it and choose hide. And then I'm going to select this, type in M for move, and I'm going to get this set in place. So I'm going to set it right, get that to snap. Come on, you can snap. doesn't want to cooperate with me. There we go. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press the M key again and press and release my control key. Copy that over, take this one again, press and release the control key, and just keep going down the road here. This is where I put one in the middle on the other side. Maybe I can do that more accurately this time. I don't think so. I don't have anything to snap to. Press and release the control key. So I'm just putting it like by eye in the middle of that door there. All right. Keep going with these. All right, now we know we got to move those up 6 inches to the top of that wall. So I'm going to press the space bar and I'm going to select this and use my control key to select, add to my selection. So I'm going to select all these and I'm going to go ahead and let's see if it lets me move it up without snapping to the floor. Okay, so that's raising up like that. So I'm going to just, while I have it raising it up, I'm just going to type in 6 inches, enter. All right, so that seemed to work just fine. All right. Let's go to edit and go to unhide and choose all. All right, so a good idea to save. Control S is your friend. Control S should be working. It should be saving that. If not, go up to File, Save. All right, so we don't need too much more for right now to get a model working that we can use in Lumion. We need a ceiling, but we need some glass. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the glass. So I'm going to hide that floor that I just unhid. Press the space bar, select it, right click over it, choose hide, and I'm going to go ahead and draw my glass. So I'm going to draw a line. So I'm pressing L for line. And I'm just going to go all the way through the mullions. You don't have to stop at each mullion. All right. And I'm going to P for push-pull. There we go. I'm going to type in 10 feet. Going to have to move that up 6 inches, but I want to make a component out of it, but all those mullions are in my way. So I'm going to select one mullion, right click, and then I'm going to choose select and select all instances, and that's going to select all my mullions, and I can right click over one of them. I have to right click over it and choose hide. Those are all gone. So now I can select my glass. Make sure I get the whole glass. Type in G, glass 01, because I'm going to have a glass 02. Okay, and I'm going to move that up. I'm going to move that up to 6 inches. So M for move. Get that right, to get that axis on the blue axis, snapping 6 inches. All right. That's the glass. So we're going to go ahead and, I could copy that over. I can just start to drag it over, press and release the control key. Snap it so I don't have to make, I said I was going to make a glass 2, but I'm just going to reuse this one. Why not? I'm going to move it up 6 inches. All right, let's go to edit, unhide. Does anyone know how to unhide all without having to go to edit, unhide all? Let me know in the comments if there's a quicker way to do that. All right, so my glass is too tall, but it's a component, right? Just press the space bar, double click on it, zoom in on it, press P for push pull, pull it down, press the space bar, double click on the dotted line. I opened up another group, close that one by double clicking on the dotted line. Okay, here we go. We have walls, mullions, glass. Pretty quick remodeling this. Let's make a ceiling. All right, let's do it. Press the L key for line. Now, what I'm going to do is, why redraw it? I already have a floor. So what I can do is I can copy the floor and then make that unique so that I can edit the ceiling different from the floor. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select it. Is that my drawing or my floor? I guess it's my floor. We'll find out. I'm going to type in M for move, start to drag it up, press and release the control key, and I'm going to snap it right to the top. All right, there we have our little closed-in building there. All right, so let's live sync this. Let's save it and live sync it over to Lumion. Okay, so I'm going to press the space button to live sync. Go on over to Lumion. Okay, there's our Lumion model. It's just wonderful. So in Lumion, you use the WASD keys to move around. So A is panning left, D is panning right, W is moving in, S is moving out, Q is moving down, and E is moving up. So the WASD keys and then Q and E will move up and down. So if you're a gamer, awesome. I'm not a gamer, so it's, I'm still not used to doing that. My wheel will move in, the wheel on the mouse, the middle wheel will move in, the right mouse button will kind of orbit, and the left mouse button doesn't really do anything. All right, so that's a little bit about moving around and orbiting in Lumion. I'm going to stop the live sync right there. Oh, I got to click over here. Stop live sync. Don't click. Don't sit there and click on the green the green circle. Nothing's going to happen. All right, stop live sync. All right, so that's here, and it's all one default material. So to have this not all one default material, we're going to have to apply materials in SketchUp. So you apply materials in your rendering software, and then those come over here. We can also apply materials when we're over here. So we'll look at applying SketchUp materials, and we'll look at applying Lumion materials. Why don't I save this Lumion file nice, since it's all nicely over here. All right, so this is my SketchUp Lumion file. It's my Lumion file named SketchUp and Lumion. All right, so let's get those materials separated. That's the next thing we're going to do. So I'm going to head back over to SketchUp, and I'm going to start to place materials. So there's a paint bucket at the very top, and that assigns materials and colors. So I can click on that paint bucket, and then I can choose materials. So I'm over here under select, so I have the materials tray out, so that's my default tray. So if you don't see that tray, you can always go to Window, go to Default Tray, and you can bring out, you see materials is out there. So these are all the little default trays that you can bring out. So I want materials, and then over in materials, I'm going to go to, I can go to materials, and that's all my materials, and then I can work inside of those materials. I'm just going to drop a translucent blue glass. So now that's on my paint bucket. So I'm going to paint that glass. Ooh, look at that. We can see in there. And I'm going to paint that glass. Oh, so sweet. We're going to paint our walls with the paint bucket. So I'm going to go back to materials, and I'm going to go to, and we can talk about importing materials in a bit, but I'm going to go to brick, and I think I have a brick here. So these aren't great materials, but they're okay to start with. So I'm going to paint that as my brick wall. I'm going to paint this That's the back. Okay, perfect. I'm going to leave this as like a gray default paint color. So let's see what we can do. We can go to colors and we can just put a color on it. I'm going to put a dark gray color on it. Okay, so those are those walls. Floor. I'm going to go back to materials and I'm going to go to wood and I'm going to pick like a light wood color to paint on there. Let me zoom on in here. I want to make sure I get it on the floor. So I'm going to press the space bar, select the glass, right click over it, choose hide. Now I can go back to my paint bucket and I'm going to paint the floor with that wood flooring material. All right, so we need mullions. So we're going to go over to materials again and we're going to go to colors and we're going to go to, I'm going to pick a middle gray material and paint. So I wish that the components would all update. Maybe if I went into the component, that would work. But let's go ahead and paint the rest of these. Doing that with the glass on, so it's a little harder to do it. Okay, so I think I just need the ceiling and then that's everything. Let's get the glass. Let's unhide the glass. Let's get a color on the ceiling. I'm going to pick a white color. Okay, just so it has. So those are colors. So colors will show up as colors and you'll see materials will show up as materials. So it's a little different. Two ways to do it. You can do it by material or by color and both of those will work. So let's save our SketchUp file. Let's LiveSync it. Let's head on over to Lumion. Okay, you see everything's been updated here. Looking really good. All right, so let's look at our materials. Just want to spin around here. A little harder to spin around in Lumion. One thing that helps is when you're using the WASD-QE keys is when you want it to go faster, you can press the shift key and that will make it go faster. And when you want it to go slower, you press the space bar and it moves slow. Okay, so we see everything's been applied here. Okay, so we need a camera. I like to set my camera early on so I have something to work with. Okay, so I can make a camera in Lumion or I can make the camera in SketchUp. All right, and I would say experiment with both ways. So I am going to make a camera. So I'm going to head back over to SketchUp, make a SketchUp camera. So we'll review how to do that. So I'm going to go to camera and I'm going to go to position camera and I'm just going to click that. Now it would be a little easier if I didn't have the ceiling on to click where I want to place that camera. So I'm going to press escape, hit the space bar, select the ceiling, say hide, and I'm going to kind of look down into this and make a camera from the bottom left to the top. Bottom left to the top right. Let's try it out. All right, camera, and let's go to down to position camera, and let's go ahead and click it. I don't want to get that wall exactly, so I'm going to click it. All right, there it is. And I can go to camera and I can go to look around, which is on by default here, and I can kind of orbit a little bit. Oh, I gotta tell you, I don't love making cameras in SketchUp and I don't love making it in Lumion because I like to have an actual camera object. So let's try that again. Let's get into this corner here. All right, so it's not bad. I want more field of view. Like I want a wider field of view. So I press the Z key. The Z is the shortcut for field of view. In my lower right, you see it says 35.00 degrees, 35 degree. So if I make this more, like if I type in 55, it zooms back. Okay, so a higher field of view is a wider camera angle. So that looks pretty good. I like the way this looks. Let's go to edit and let's go to unhide and unhide all. Now I'd really like to see the glass on the right side of me, and I'm not seeing that right now. So right now I still have the zoom highlighted, and I'm gonna zoom out some more. It doesn't want to do it. Okay, so I zoomed back in. So I want to pan over a little bit. So I'm going to try to go to my camera and click on look around, and then I'm going to try to get that right. There we go. I'm getting that. So look around and I'm just moving my left mouse button, and I'm just getting that so that I can see the glass on the right hand side, because I really want the sun to come in there. Okay, the height, you see the eye height in the lower right? I'm going to make that 4'6". So that just is happening with my look around. So 4'6" is a nice dramatic eye level. It's lower than eye level. Okay, so we have that eye level set up. Now what we can do is we can save this scene. So we can save the camera. So in case we move around, we can always go back to it. I'd still like to get more window on the right. I'm going to try my field of view a little bit higher. So I'm going to press the Z key. It was 55. I'm going to try 50. Oh, I need to go higher. So I'm going to try 60. All right, so I'm seeing a little bit more of that. So it's a wider angle. I don't want to go too wide because it can start to get distorted. All right, to save this scene, so I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to go down to Animation, and I'm going to click on Add Scene. And I can right click on it. I can rename it. I'm going to call this Cam-01. Okay, so that's my Cam-01. So that's there. So now I'm going to save my SketchUp file, and I'm going to live sync it, and I'm going to go over to Lumion, and it live syncs the camera, which I really like. So if I go back over to SketchUp, if that's not working for you, what you want to do is you want to click on Stop Camera Synchronization, and then click on Start Camera Synchronization, and that will work for you. All right, let's stop the live sync, and let's, right off the bat, let's save this view. I know we have it saved in SketchUp, but we can look at saving this view here in Lumion. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the little photo icon. It looks like a little old school camera there. I'm going to click on that. Now we're in our photo mode, and right here, photo 1, right above it, there's another camera icon that shows up. I'm going to click on it. It takes a little picture. It stores it. So after you store it, to name it, you think you'd be able to name it down here with like right clicking or double clicking, but it happens here at the top. So it's just finding out where these simple things are. So I'm going to just call this Cam-01. Okay, so that's going to be my camera. All right, so my camera is saved. We have some basic materials on here that came from SketchUp, so you see those come over real well. So the next thing we want to look at is maybe bringing in some furniture and then do some lighting. Some furniture will help to get some shadows and some things to light up. So let's go that route. Okay, so let's go back over to, we're going to call this the build mode. So in the lower right, that changes us from the build mode to the camera mode. So we're going to go back and forth between the camera and the build mode. All right, so we're back in the build mode. Let's go ahead and save this. All these softwares you want to save often. Often. All right, let's go back over to SketchUp, and we can import furniture. So SketchUp is this, I think it's a decent 3D modeling software. It's decent. It's really easy to use. It's very good to make simple models. It's not for anything complex. But one of the biggest advantages of SketchUp is the 3D warehouse, because you can find everything on the 3D warehouse. So let's go ahead and click on this little 3D warehouse button, and 3D warehouse opens up in a little browser there. I think if I'm signed in, if I'm signed in to use SketchUp, I'm also signed in to use the 3D Warehouse, and I can search for anything. Let's search for Corbu Chase Lounge. Now, it's not Google, so you got to get these things. See, zero products found. So you got to get it right in. So Corbusier, that's going to force me to spell Corbusier, which I don't know how to spell. So, yep, there we go. So Corbusier Chase Lounge. I'm going to pick this one here. I'm going to go ahead and click on the download and load this directly into your SketchUp model. Yes, please. So that's going to be on my cursor. So I'm going to go ahead. It comes with this little picture that we're going to have to get rid of. So I'm going to just drop it in here and press escape a couple times. And I'm going to orbit around. I'm going to zoom way out here. I'm going to hide some things. So I'm going to use my space bar, right click, hide. And I'm going to select that group, double click on it, select that little picture, press the delete key, that goes away, double click on the dots again, double click on the dots. All right, there is my Corbu chair. So I'm going to press M for move, and I'm going to select that and move it. I want to see what that looks like through the camera. So I'm going to double click on camera. Now camera saves all your hide settings. So you saw I had objects hidden and they're back in my view because when I go to camera 1, it goes back to that layer state, so to speak, where those objects were on when I saved the camera, which is good and it's good and bad. It's just however you want to use it. So I'm going to right click and choose hide. I'm going to select that chair and I'm going to move it, press M for move. It wasn't showing up in my camera. So let's see, I want to get that to be pretty prominent in my camera. There it is. Now I can see it at least. And I can move it. So I'm going to move it about right there. All right, I'm going to save this. LiveSync it. Stop the LiveSync. Go on over to Lumion. All right. I got the spinning wheel, so it's maybe updating, or maybe I didn't leave the LiveSync on long enough. Yep, there it is. It took a second. It's pretty. These 3D Warehouse is awesome, as I mentioned. It has everything in it. The models can, they can start to weigh down your computer. If you've worked with SketchUp and 3D Warehouse, the more you put in, the more intense it is on the computer. But that's just what we have to deal with. All right, so we covered some basic materials, some basic modeling. We brought in some furniture from 3D Warehouse. Now we want to look at lighting. All right, so we want to look at lighting. So I'm going to start looking at the sunlight. That's where you want to start when you're thinking about light. So the sunlight is something really easy to control in Lumion. I can go to weather, and then I get this little sun direction, and I can move this all around, and I can see the sun coming in. And I mentioned I want it to come in on the right-hand side, and then I can lower the sun height so it comes in more or less. Okay, so I'm going to have it come in about that far. So that's my sun that's coming in. So a little bit more about Lumion. This is a real-time rendering engine, meaning you don't have to wait a super long time to get an image. Sometimes you need to wait maybe 15 minutes depending on what you're putting into it. Sometimes it's a couple seconds or a minute, less than a minute. So it's real-time rendering engine. So it's not like V-Ray or like Revit's default rendering engine where you have to wait, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, 8 hours. You've all been there. So it's a real-time rendering engine, and that's what's great about it. So in the window right now is not what it's going to render out like. It's actually going to render out better than what we're looking at in this viewport right now. But we brought in our sunlight. So the next thing I want to do is I actually want to make some light objects. So I'm going to go to the home little icon here. And Lumion works by selecting categories. So you just want to know what category you want to make. So you can make nature categories, people, cars, objects, groups, lights, effects, and utilities. You can do all these. So I'm going to go to light. Actually, it's an object that I want to bring in. We'll get to the light source. So lights is light source, and then light objects would be under light objects. So double click on objects. This little window pops up here, and I can choose the category lighting. And I'm going to choose a rail track lighting. So it's a rail light. And I'm going to go to page 2, see what we have there, and I'm going to pick rail. I'm going to click on it, and then it's going to be on my cursor. And then I'm just going to place it in. So I'm just placing it in, and then I'm going to go to the select tool. So the first one was place on the left when you're placing objects, and on the right is where you're selecting objects. So I'm going to click on the select object, and you get the nice arrows so where you can move this wherever you need it. And I'm going to move it, I'm going to try to move it over the chaise lounge as much as possible. So I'm going to position it there. Now I can go to rotate, and this is really nice. I can rotate this. You see it spinning around that, so the heading is rotating it. So I'm going to face it toward the chair. And then pitch, I believe, will be up and down. So down and up. So my pitch can be how I want to tilt that. All right, I'm not sure if that's the right position. Let me go back to move. Let me drag it back just a little bit. All right, so that looks about good. Looks about right through the camera. All right, so now let's make an actual light object. So we're going to go ahead and click on lights, and we need to double click on it to get that menu to pop up. And there's 3 types of lights. There's spotlights, there's omni lights, and there's area lights. So we're going to look at all 3, but we're going to start with a spotlight. And then there's different types of lamps, so to speak, like lamp distribution. And you can experiment with these. I think most of them are just based on some settings that you can do. So I think they're all essentially the same, but with different default settings. So let's start with lamp 10. I like that one to begin with. So I'm going to click on it, and it starts to place my object. And it's placing it on the surfaces, which is nice. It's going from floor to wall to ceiling, so it's really smart like that. So I'm just going to place it, and then I'm going to go to my select tool, and the move is by default, and I'm going to go ahead and move this over. So now I need to move this off the ceiling. So I'm just using these awesome arrows to do that. And let's see if we can get it to show up on the floor, and we don't see it at the moment. So in my upper right, I'm seeing a lot of information here. And one of the things that I'm seeing is the layer, the current layer. So you want to put your objects that you create in Lumion on their own layer, like a lights layer. So I can take layer 2, and I can choose edit layer. And I'm going to call that, let's edit that layer. I'm going to call it lights. And I'm going to put all my lights on that. So I'm going to have lights. I was going to make 2 layers, but I'm just going to make 1. So I'm going to have lights. And I can click away from that. And I'm going to select that light. And over here, I can put it on that layer. So I'm going to change it to lights. And I'm also going to select that light object. Now, the object, so that we have the light source, and then we have the light object. So to select the light object, I need to go back to objects and then click on it. And then in the upper right, I can change it to my lights layer. Now to select my light, I need to go back to lights and then click on the light object. And now I have some settings. So first thing I'm going to do is put the brightness all the way up. It can never get too bright for a day rendering. Night, that's a whole different story. So I'm going to pull it all the way up, and then I'm going to reduce the cone angle. And then I start to see the light. So we are not set up for success with putting lights in by default. And almost every rendering software I've ever worked in does not set me up for success when it comes to lighting. Lighting is always the most challenging. It's the most difficult thing, but it's the most important thing in your renderings. Okay, so I just brought the cone angle down, and I increased the brightness all the way up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to rotate, and I'm going to use heading. Whoa. I'm going to use heading. All right, that's not moving the way I want it. Let's try pitch. There we go. So that's going in that direction to get my heading back to focusing on the chair there. And I'm going to go back to move, and I'm going to try my best to move it so it looks believable, like it's coming from that light. And we'll get some more opportunities to move that. So let's go back to rotate. Let's get the heading. Now I'm way off here. Oh no, I'm not seeing my light anymore. Maybe it's inside. Let's move it out. Let's go back to move. Let's move it down. There. So be careful not to go in the object. Now we'll rotate it back. Come on back. Come on back. Okay. I'm going to have to mess around with this more. We'll see when we put a lighting effect on it. We're going to have to get that positioned even better. Okay. We'll see that in a bit. So that's our spotlight. So we're going to look at two more different lights. We're going to look at an omni and an area light. And for these lights, we're going to have to edit our geometry. For this one, we have our light object. But if I want to do some recessed can lights, I'm going to have to edit my model so that I have somewhere to put the recessed cans in. So let's go ahead back over to SketchUp and do that. Let's save this while we're here. Let's go back over to SketchUp. All right. So we're going to make some recessed can lights. We're going to make this in the ceiling. So I need to look at this from above. All right, so I'm just going to place in a circle. So I do need to open this group up and make the circle inside the group, or I should call it a component because that's what it is. So I'm going to double click on it. So I need to draw it on the bottom or it's not going to work. You saw what was happening. So just got to make it work from the bottom. So C for circle, make the radius 3 inches. Now I can press P for push pull. And I can start to pull that up into the ceiling. So I'm going to pull it up. Since the ceiling is 6 inches, I'm going to pull that in 3 inches. So I'm just typing in 3 inches, enter. And you see that. So I had to be in the component. I had to put it where I thought it should go. And then I had to draw the circle, push, pull it. Now I should still be able to select it. So I'm going to do a window selection, press M for move. And I can move that around. Okay. So we're going to make a few lights in the scene just so we get an idea of how that's going to look in Lumion. I'm going to go to camera and I'm going to go to standard views and I'm going to pick bottom. So I'm looking underneath it. Oh, don't drag your mouse or else you're going to get away from the actual bottom one. Okay. So I'm going to press my space bar. I'm going to window select this, press M for move, and I'm just going to move this somewhere about there. And then I'm going to press CO for copy. Not CO for copy, I'm thinking I'm in Revit. Anyway, M for move, pick a point, press and release the control key, and I'm going to copy this over 5 feet. Okay, and I'm going to do that again. Move it, press and release the control key, and then type in 5 feet. That's a good distance between lighting. So let's just make 6 of these. So I'm going to press the space bar, select all of them, press M for move, start to move it up, press and release the control key, type in 5 feet. Okay, so there are my 6 lights. I'm going to go with that. Let's see what that looks like in my camera view. Let's close up, press the space bar, let's close up this group. Go to cam 1, it's going to hide all my objects, it's going to bring me in. Okay, now I don't remember making the ceiling unique. And that's why there are some recessed cans on the bottom of this floor. There they are, because I didn't make it unique. So what I didn't do is I didn't select it, right click on it and say make unique. I'm going to do that right now. Okay. No harm with those recessed cans. It's our little secret that they're on the bottom of the floor. So no harm there. So I'm going to go back to camera 1. All right, so we have our light recessed cans. Now, I don't like just putting in the recessed can without some light trim around it. So I want to put some light trim around it. So I'm going to select it, Shift Control I, right click over one of my objects, hide, and we're going to put some light trim. All right, so let's do this with a circle. Let's see if I can get the center point of that. Let's go to our camera, standard views, bottom. Let's go ahead and draw this here. Okay, I'm gonna make the radius 3 inches. And let's see if I can select that. I'm gonna select that. Okay, and I'm gonna offset that. So I'm gonna click on my offset. So I think it's helpful if I select the line. Let's go ahead and hide the ceiling. Okay, so there's my line. So it's filled in. I don't want that filled in. So I am going to try to offset that. Okay, so I selected it, and I'm going to type in 1 inch. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this inner face. I'm going to select it and press the delete key. Now I have just the outer face, and I'm going to press push pull, and I'm going to pull that down 1 inch. So it's a little piece of trim. Okay, so it's not just a recessed can. So let's make a component out of that. Press the space bar, select it, press G. We're going to type in trim or light trim. So the more detail you can add to your models, the better and more realistic they're going to look in the rendering. All right, let's go to our bottom view. So camera, standard views, bottom, and let's bring out our ceiling. So if I go to view, or if I go to edit and I go to unhide, I can unhide last. That's going to bring just the ceiling back. All right, so where's my trim piece? It's in there somewhere. So I'm going to use my window selection, type in move, press and release the control key, type in 5 feet. Now, is that on the top of the ceiling? Where is that trim piece? So that trim piece is obviously not in the right place. So let's see, do I got to move those down? So press the space bar, select everything. Type in M for move this down. Okay, are those in the right place now? They're almost in the right place. I moved them down 6 inches. They only need to move 3 inches. So let's press M again. Let's see if I can get this. Yep, that's moving up vertically. It's actually not bad snapping, but I'm going to type in 3 inches. Okay, got those. This guy, I didn't move. So let me move him 3 inches. All right, let's use the space bar, select this one, M for move. We're going over 5 feet. Press and release the control key, 5 feet. So you just got to make sure it's going in the right direction. So space bar, let's select all 3 of these. Let's put in our move. Press and release the control key, 5 feet, 5 feet. That's the lighting distance. So we know we have that. All right, so we have our trim. Let's go back to camera 1. All right, let's save this. All right, so we're done with the model for a little while. We're going to come back and model a few more pieces in, but I'm going to live sync this, and then I'll stop the live sync, and I'll go back over to Lumion and go to build mode. Okay, so I don't see this model updating yet, so let's go back over to SketchUp. Let's click on the live sync and not stop it right away. Let's go back over to Lumion. Lumion's thinking right now. That's what's happening. There it is. That's SketchUp. All right, Lumion, it's thinking, the wheel's spinning. All right, there we go. We have some places to put our recessed cans in. Now I can stop the LiveSync here, and I'm gonna go ahead and go to double click on lights, go to Omni Light, and I'm gonna choose my Omni Light. I'm gonna start with that one. And then I'm just gonna place it. So if I zoom in with the wheel here, it's a little tricky. Zoom in, and I'm gonna place it right on that object, and I can always move it. So I'm going to place it there, hit escape, and I'm going to go to my selection. I'm going to select that light, and let's see it. Let's click the brightness all the way up. There it is. Now there's a light source. I don't think we looked at that with the spotlight, but you can turn on the light source. It makes like a sphere, and I can adjust the radius of it. It's just, it doesn't really look realistic. It doesn't look like a light bulb. So I'm going to undo the light source. And I'm just going to drag this down just a little bit so it fills that pocket. Okay, now I can copy it to the other locations. So one thing I didn't mention is there's light color. So I can click on the color, and let's say I want this to be a little warmer than the others. So I'm just going to change that color there. And I'm going to press my Alt key, and I'm going to drag this, and that makes a copy. And I'm going to do my best to get it where it looks like it's in there. It looks pretty good. Now I'm going to select both of these. So I'm going to click on my picker, and I'm going to select both of them with the Control key. And I'm going to drag this with the Alt key. And I'm going to make the next one there. Looks like they got to move kind of independent from one another. A little tricky. We'll see if they're in the right place. We might have to tweak those. All right, so there's those two. Let's drag those over with the Alt key. Okay, and I really won't know until I look at my camera, but okay, so let's look at this a little more closely. So I want to select all the lights and adjust their brightness. And if I select all identical objects, I can do that. I can select all objects in the same category. That's going to select all my lights. I could go over here and I can select all on that layer, but I have that one spotlight that I don't want to select. Okay, so I'm going to try all identical objects. Okay, and that selects all those lights. And now I can adjust the brightness on those all together. Okay, so I want that all the way up. So I just wanted you to see that. And then I can go to deselect all. There's no other way to deselect them, so it could be a little tricky. So I go down to the bottom here and deselect all. Okay. All right, so we have our lights in there. Let's see what those look like in our photo mode. Okay, let's go to that camera. All right, so I want to see, so we see our can lights. We see those lighting up decent. I want to see the light that's coming from the rail light. Okay, but there's some other things that I want to do here. So I want to start to make this scene look better. So I can click in the update here, and it just starts to update, and you see that it starts to look nicer. Some lights are not in the right spot, like that one right there on the left. I can see that's not in the right spot. So let's go back to our build mode, and let's zoom into that one. Let's go to select. Go ahead and select that light. They all seem like they need a little adjustment, but as long as they show up in the camera view. Okay, let's go to that camera. All right, we might have to tweak some of those, but let's move forward. We can go back and do some final tweaking. So what I really want to get into now is how do we make the rendering look nice? It looks okay, but how do we make it look good? All right, so that happens in Lumion with something called effects. So we can add a bunch of effects. And the first effect that I want to start with is I want to start with something called a real sky. So let's look at that. So let's click on the plus for effect. I can go under lighting, or I can go under featured, and I can find real skies. Now you'll see the sun went away. The sun went away, and we'll come back to getting the sun. So you can choose different real skies, like if you want a different look to it. Like if I go to this overcast one, it's going to look overcast. It's going to start to look like night. The lights are going to get really bright. So they really affects kind of the global lighting, like just as a place to start with. And I can go, just want to go back in there. There's a bunch of them. I can go to sunset. And we can start to see that light on the real sky and how it affects the interior lighting. So real important. I'm going to go to a clear sky. They have night, which is cool. I'm going to go to clear. I'm going to pick one that's higher in the sky, so that middle one, because that's where my sun is going to come from. And I have this thing called heading. So now I can move this around, and now that's where I want the daylight to come in, the sunlight, the daylight. I want it to come in there, and there's all different kind of settings. So I was just looking at the heading, moving the heading to rotate it. There's sky brightness, background brightness, sun intensity. We have all that. But now I want to start to add to my what's called my effect stack. This is my effect stack right here, or effect list. I call it a stack. All right, so real sky. So next thing I'm going to bring in is I'm going to bring in the sun. And the sun needs to go on top, and the effect stack needs to go on top of the real sky, or you won't see it. You won't see the sun. So I'm going to go back to the real sky for a second. I want to look at heading. And I can actually type in a number here. And I'm going to just type in 88, just a round number, 88. And it's important that I set my sun heading to the same value. So I'm going to go to sun heading, and I'm going to type in 88, so those match. Okay, so was that 80? I want that to be 88. Okay, so that's 88. And if I go back, I just want to check my real sky. The heading on that is 88. All right, so those match. Okay, so that's our sun and our real sky. We want both of those in our image, and I can preview those and see what that's looking like. Okay, so let's go back to the sun for a second. So there's the sun height. I can adjust the sun height. I have control over that, which I don't have control over the sun height when I use just a real sky. There's no control over that. So that's one of the benefits of adding a sun in here. And I have intensity, and I have heading, which is the position of it. All right, let's keep moving through this effect stack. So sun, real sky. I also want to add in a skylight, which takes in consideration the real sky and the sun, and it makes a skylight based on light filtering through sun and sky. So we're going to go ahead and click the effects, and this is going to be our skylight. All right, so let's put our skylight and planar reflections on, our skylight and projected reflections on. Let's look at the brightness of that. So I do have to double click in here to see that. Okay, so now you're seeing some light coming into the space that looks much more natural, like natural light. And we can even add another effect called a hyperlight, where we make it even more natural. So right now I have the brightness kicked up on that. Saturation, that's something we can talk about in a little bit. So let's go back to our effects, and we're going to choose hyperlight. So that's this one. So just a little bit more light intensity. So I'm going to kick that up, enable and preview, double click on that. So again, just getting that light to look a little bit more natural as it starts to flood the space. All right, let's keep going with it. So next, we're going to look at shadow. So we're trying to intensify the light, and we also want to intensify the shadows. So I'm going to bring in a shadow, and I am going to turn on soft shadows and turn on fine detail shadows, and I'm going to work with increasing the range. So you kind of see that in the lower right there, that we're having some settings there, and you just kind of get that the way you want it to look. we have the Omni Shadow, which I can add more or less of. So this is, so you see when I add less of it, I have nothing. It looks really flat. When I add more, it adds more depth. So this is, to me, this is something called ambient occlusion, where you're looking at objects that cast shadow onto one another. That's called ambient occlusion. Lumion doesn't use ambient occlusion, but I can fake ambient occlusion with this Omni Shadow. Okay, and then there's interior and exterior, and it's really like 0 or 1. I mean, you can get in between that too. Like, it's basically, what do you like? How does it look? All right, so I'm going to put it somewhere about here. Okay, let's keep going with the effects. So let's go to our effects list. Let's go back. All right, so we have all these effects. The next one is I want to look at sharpen. I want to sharpen the texture maps or the brick map. I want to make that sharper. So this is a way where you can kind of fake resolution. You can get more resolution. Yeah, you can get more resolution than you render it out. It looks to be like a higher resolution rendering because it's not so fuzzy. The lines are sharpened. So I can go to enhancement and I can go to sharpen. Okay, so when I take the intensity down, I think just focus on the brick for a moment. That brick texture is not great. It needs a better texture. But as I move this from left to right, you see the lines in the brick wall and the flooring get sharper. They go from fuzzy when I have it to the far left to sharp when I have it to the far right. So I'm just going to keep that all the way up for now. You always have to double click in this preview to really see what it's actually looking like. Okay, I know we have much more to cover. So if you want to take a break, go ahead and do it and come back, or let's keep running through it. All right, so we didn't look at an area light. So we do have to make an area light, but I just want to add a few more to the stack. One I'm going to add right now is I'm going to add a volumetric light because I want to deal with this light that's happening over the chair. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the plus for effects. And I'm going to find my volumetric light. So that should be under lighting, and then there's volumetric lights. Okay, and I'm going to go to select lights. So it doesn't work on Omni lights. You don't get a volumetric effect with Omni lights, but it works with spotlights. So there you see that turn on, and I'm going to click the check mark. And now I have this density setting. I have this intensity setting, and I have a fall off. And this is going to look much better when we click on the preview. So fall off is how close or far from the light. So, and then intensity, and then we have density. So those three together. Let's click on the preview to, okay, so you see that looks much nicer there. And it looks like it's coming from our light. It's not too bad. We're making rendering, so don't forget about Photoshop. There's always Photoshop. All right, so this is looking pretty decent. I like the way that this is looking. That chair can be moved over a little bit to be in the light fully. Okay, so I mentioned I was going to look at 2 more lights. All right, so here's our effect stack. You can always save this. If you click on the dots, you can copy it to other cameras. You can copy it from one camera, paste it to the next. You could load it from a saved file, and then you could save it. We'll save it at the end and take a look at that. Okay. All right, so I want to look at an area light. So I need a soffit. So I'm going to go back to build mode. I'm going to save this file. And I'm going to go back over to SketchUp, and I'm going to make a little soffit object. So let's see, what do I want to have turned on? I think I want to have just ceiling, wall, Shift Control I, right click over the floor because that's one of the objects we're going to hide. Okay, so we're going to make a soffit over here. So I'm going to do this with, just going to do it with a line or a rectangle tool. Let's try. We haven't used rectangle today. Our rectangle tool. Just getting it on the right axis. Okay, now we can pull this. I'm going to pull it down 2 inches. And I'm going to Press the M key well, before I move it, I'm going to make it a component. 2 inches. It's a little thin at 2 inches. Let's pull that down. Let's pull it down 1 inch. So that's 3 inches. Pull it down 1 more inch to be 4 inches. All right, let's use the space bar, select it all, G for group, call this soffit. Paint it with a color so that it comes in with a material. So I'm going to go back to colors and I'm going to make it white. I'm painting that. So hopefully that comes in correctly. I'm going to move it down a little bit so I can put some light above it. All right, let's go to camera 1 and take a look at that. All right, there's my soffit. It's coming out a little bit too far, so I'm going to pull this side in if I can. Well, I got to ungroup it, right? So spacebar, double click on it, P for push pull. Got to get that side. There we go. Let's go back to our camera and see what that looks like. All right, it's going into the brick wall a little bit, so let's work on this a little bit. Let's spend a few seconds on it. All right, let's select the wall, select the soffit, Shift Control I. Let's hide this. Let's get this so it's not sticking in the wall. So I'm going to double click on it. P for push pull. Now I can't see the side, so that's the problem. There we go. Wish I could get that to snap. Yes, I can. Thank you, SketchUp. All right, double click on it. Oh, didn't snap to the front though. I thanked it too soon. Okay, perfect. Drag it in just a little bit from that side here. Okay, how's the back side? We're never going to see the back side. All right, so spacebar, double click on it. Let's go to our camera. So we're going to put a light above that soffit. We're going to put an area light. Okay, so let's saving this. I'm going to LiveSync it. Head over to Lumion. Now this always freaks me out when I get to the screen. It's like, did it crash? What happened to my file? Where is it at? Sometimes I've gone and actually loaded or created new. So just be patient, or just take a moment, look at it, and go to the lower right and click on the build mode. And that gets you back into the build mode. It's getting there. It's thinking. It's doing that live sync. Okay, so we're back here. So let's put a light. Let's go back. Let's double click on lights. So we looked at spotlight. We looked at omni light. Let's look at an area light. The difference between line and area, there's no real difference. It's just the setting of the size of the light. So we can start with a area light. I can place that. You see it's placing it on the ceiling to begin with. So I'm going to place it on the ceiling. I am going to click on the select tool. I'm going to look over here in my lights. I am going to put the brightness all the way up so that I can actually see something. Okay, see that wall's lighting up there. I'm going to change the color of it because we like to just show that we can change colors of lights. I'm going to adjust the width. Now the width is not too wide. I'm going to adjust the length and I'm going to move it. Get rid of this little tools bar here. So I have it too long. Okay, maybe about there, and I'm going to move it down. I'm going to turn on the light source just for a moment so we could see it. Okay, so there's my light source. So I'm going to move it so that it's within the soffit there. I'm going to unhide the light source. Or I'm going to hide the light source. I want to rotate it. Right now it's shining down. You see it on the wall, even though it's being blocked by the soffit. You still see it. I want it to light up the ceiling. So I'm going to go to rotate, and just got to figure out if it's my heading or my pitch. So it's my pitch in this case that flips it. Okay, so I want it at -90. It snaps there. So now it's lighting up my ceiling nicely with an area light. That is so awesome. All right, all right, all right. I know there's more. I know there's more that I want to cover. That's for sure. There's definitely more. So let's keep going. All right, so I'm going to stop the live sync. All right, so we have our lighting in. That's all the lighting I wanted to cover. We looked at the sunlight. We looked at real skies. We looked at spotlight, omni, and area. So we have a few more effects we want to put in, but I just want to focus on the materials for a second. Okay, and I have a materials video. If you search up Alfonso Peluso PBR, physically based rendering materials, you're going to find a really in-depth video on materials. But while we're here, I just want to look at materials, how to add a material or how to place a material in Lumion. So we'll do a couple of these. So one, let's look at the brick. So I'm going to go over to materials. I'm going to click on the brick. It named it the same thing that was named in SketchUp. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. It was thinking. And then I'm going to go to settings is where all the settings are. That comes up by default. So it just has a texture map that came over from SketchUp. So that's a pretty small texture. So that's going to repeat itself. And you can see that repetition over in the viewport. You can see that happening. So it's not the best texture. But let's make a Lumion material. So I'm going to go to materials. And here we see all our materials. So I'm going to go to, we have these categories of materials. So we have fabrics, we have plastics, glass, metals, plaster, stone, roofing, wood, fur, and assorted. All right, so what category is my brick going to fall under? I don't know. Stone? Yeah, stone, bricks. I'm gonna go, and then you see there's like 3 pages of bricks here. So we have these bricks to choose from. I don't know what, well, I don't want stones. Okay, so these are stones. What is this one? I don't know why I'm going, like in the image that was rendered was like a red brick. This is a gray brick. And if I go to settings, I have the textures full on, and my PBR video talks about the different textures. We have the scale, which it says custom, which is coming from SketchUp. So if we go over to SketchUp just for a moment. Okay, so I've selected the wall. Over here it says colors. I'm going to go to in model. And that's showing everything in model. Well, there's a lot of materials that come from that Chaise Lounge. Okay, so here's my brick. Okay, so I went to, real quick, I'll do that again. So I go to select, I go to this pull down, I choose in model, and then I find my brick material. And here's the brick size of it. That's being set right here. So that 4'10" by 3 feet. So if you want to change the size of it in SketchUp, you can do that. I can make this, let's say 7 feet just to make it drastic, then it gets huge. I can make it 1 inch and it's going to get really small. And notice the lock is on, so it's changing both of those. So I'm going to make it 10 feet. I'm just going to exaggerate it. Okay, so I can change the scale here, and that's going to update over in Lumion. So if I click on the play button, and then we go over to Lumion, Lumion's going to think about it for a second. Lumion's thinking. Okay, it's thinking. Let's see what that's going to change. Okay, so let's go to this actual brick antique, and let's look at it. That scale custom, it should be coming from the SketchUp. Let's stop the live sync. Okay, so it says custom, but then I'm going to go away from custom. I'm going to go all the way over. Oh, there's imported and custom. Okay, so imported, that's the size. That's going to be the size from SketchUp. When you move it all the way over, it says map scale imported. That will use your sizes from SketchUp. If we don't want the sizes from SketchUp, you have the custom size that you can use here. Okay, so just want to get that looking about right. Okay, I'm going to add a little reflectivity to that guy. Make it a little glossy. So reflectivity, to make something reflective, you also work with the roughness. So you see when I take the roughness down, it gets more shiny, which makes it more reflective. So when you're looking at reflections, you have to work both with reflectivity and roughness. Okay, and if I haven't mentioned it, take a look at my PBR, Physically Based Rendering Materials video. Take a look at that one. All right, so let's add a little bit. Let's spice up the floor a little bit. So I'm going to click the check mark here, and as long as I'm under materials, I can click on wood floor light, and then I'm going to go to materials, and I'm going to go to wood, and then I'm going to go to flooring, and lots of options here. I'm not a big fan of the herringbone pattern, but I like the color. So let's see if I can find color without herringbone. Like wants to give me all herringbone colors or all herringbone patterns. It's just in love with the herringbone. All right, that's a different color. I just don't know about the scale of it. We can go to settings and we can adjust the scale. Yeah, I don't love this one. Let's kick up the relief. So relief is a bump. Let's get some contrast. It's too close to the wall. So when you're working with materials, you want a little bit of contrast in the renderings. I know in the real world, especially me from being from IIT, I pick one color. So let's change this material. Let's go back to our wood floor. So many to choose from. I want to pick a lighter, softer wood, but I don't want parquet. I don't know why they would have parquet in there. Does anyone use parquet anymore? I don't think so. I want a light one, but I want something kind of simple. This is why sometimes you have to just browse for your own material textures because you're just limited to what they have here. I got to go with one. Okay, let's go with that one. The scale's way off. So make it bigger. A little too big. All right, it has some relief. Let's crank that up a little bit. So that's the bump. Bring the roughness down so it gets a little more shiny. Get some more shine on it. All right, that's looking pretty good. It's contrasting with the wall. We need carpet. We need some carpet underneath that chaise lounge. All right. Also, the light needs to be adjusted. So let's go to home. Let's click on light. Let's click on select. Let's select that bad boy. And let's go to rotate. Can't remember if it was heading or pitch. It's pitch. So just getting it more over the chaise lounge. It's kicked up all the way. Cone angle. Can make that just a little bit bigger. All right, cool. Cool. All right, we need a carpet. So I'm going to save this. Save it. Go back to build mode. Go back to SketchUp. All right, carpet. I just need a line. I need a rectangle basically. Need to pull it up. I'm going to pull it up 1/4 of an inch. Okay. How about my rotate? We haven't looked at rotate. Give it a starting point. Oh, what did I forget to do? I know you all know. Forgot to make a component out of it. So let me zoom out a little bit. Oh no. Select this wall. Right click and hide it. Okay, we need to make a component. G for group. This is our carpet. Okay, that's our carpet. Rotate that a little bit better. Move it over a little bit. Oh, come on, you can move. You can move without going down. That's what I hate about that. Why are you going down? All right. While we're here, so that's our carpet. So let's put a material on it. I'm sure there's a carpet material under select, under materials, under carpet, and we can use one. We can always change it to one inside of Lumion. Let's paint bucket that. Okay. So let's just get a material on there. Last thing I want to model. Last thing I want to model is two things I want to model. Two things. One's a painting, so like a piece of artwork. So I'm going to make a rectangle. We're going to pull it out. We're going to use the space bar. We're going to select it all. G for group. Art. Okay. And I'm going to make another rectangle for like an object that I want to make self-illuminate. Just to look at emissive materials. Okay, press the space bar. G for group, call this light box. Okay, and I need to put materials on these. So I'm going to do this just through colors. So I'm going to go to this pull down here, and I'm going to go to colors. And I'm just going to place some colors on these, just different colors. Doesn't matter because we're going to change the material inside of Lumion. All right, let's go to camera one and see what these are going to look like in here. All right, we're going to save this. This is the end of the modeling for this video. We're going to sync it. I'm going to head over to Lumion, let Lumion think about the syncing. Okay, so that's sunked up. All right, press the stop. All right, so just a couple things left here. All right, so we ended up modeling that carpet. Let's take a look at this carpet. So I'm going to select the carpet, and I'm going to go to materials, and I'm going to go to materials, and I have a fur, okay, and we'll take a look at two ways to do it. So I'm going to use the brown and white fur. Okay, so that gets put on there. I'm going to go to settings, and there is man, that's an ugly carpet. All right, that is a super ugly carpet. So let's take a look back at the carpet. Not many to choose from, right? These are all pretty ugly. All right, so we're gonna let's look at that dark gray fur. And let's go back to settings, and let's go to fur size. Whoa, look at that, just so you can see it. All right, you can get this really shag carpeting from the 70s. So you got fur size, you have fur length, so you can kind of work on those a little bit more. You have velvet scale, you have roughness, so less or more roughness. So you have all these, gravity force. So a lot of different ways to look at that. And you can also do this with a grass, like a 3D grass material, but I think we'll keep it with this, what we have here. Okay, so that's that. How about our artwork? Am I ready to tackle that one? All right, so that's color EO3. All right, so I'd actually have to bring in a texture map for my art, because we don't want to just choose from here. So I'd have to have a texture. So what I would need to do then is I would go to settings, and then for my texture slot, I would click on that, and I would go and find a file. So you just have to have your file ahead of time. I think I have one just kind of in here. Yes, I'm going to have one in my materials folder. So it's always a good idea to make a materials folder if you're downloading materials from the internet. Okay, so here's one. So we're going to choose that as my texture. And the scale is imported, so we can just scale that as we need to. There's also ways to position it. So there's the X offset that's on the side. There's a Y offset that's up and down. There is a Z offset that's over. Let's see, I like the way it was initially. All right, so that's your artwork. You can put a little bit of artwork on there. And now we have this color, this light box. So what we can do with the light box is we can go down and find emissive properties. Okay, so I need to be under properties. I was under move. I'm under properties, and I can adjust the emissive strength. So this thing gets really bright. We're going to make it like a magenta. So what I don't like about Lumion is the emissive strength doesn't work unless it is nighttime. And my want is that could work. So I'm just bringing the sun down here. And then we see it. It's not great. The brick scale is big once you see the lighting on this. So it needs to work on emissive. It works better for like white objects. I think work a little bit better, but that's how we can do emissive. All right, so I just wanted you guys to see emissive. All right, back to the effect stack, and then we can render this bad boy out. All right, so back to our effect stack. So we see that being applied there. Looks really good. Glass. I haven't shown glass, but I have a video. You could search up Lumion glass, and you can check that out. So a couple more things in the stack effect. Okay, so one is reflection. So I'm going to click on the plus, and I'm going to find where reflection is. Can I guess which one it's under? Maybe architectural? Nope. Where would that be? Under featured. All right. I'm going to double click on that. It says active planes. So the more active planes can slow it down, but we need a few. We need the floor. So I'm just clicking on this plus. I need that glass plane. I need this glass plane, the floor, and the two glass planes. And it just makes the reflectivity more realistic. Okay, so it's not too many planes there, so I'm just clicking on the check mark. So those are my reflections. And it has a speed ray. We're going to turn that on. Okay, and I think we're going to leave it right there. All right, so that's our reflection. So we're going to get more accurate reflections. We're going to add in a couple more things here. We're going to add in some things to deal with the background. Our background's really plain. We're going to replace that in Photoshop, not in this video. But let's look at adding some things for our background. One is going to be fog. So where's our fog going to be? Maybe under sky weather, fog. And this is going to deal with just where the horizon line meets the ground plane. So you see, if I kick up the fog density, it's going to fog out the whole scene. So I want it just to give me a little bit of fog, mainly in the background. But just a little bit into my scene isn't bad. I don't mind that. There's fall off and there's brightness. You could experiment with that. Okay, back to our effect stack. All right, what do we have here? Let's go back to the effect stack. Okay, so what am I missing? What more do I want to show in here? I want to show depth of field and color correction. Let's do color correction first. So color correction you can do in Photoshop, but it doesn't hurt to do it in here in Lumion. So you have exposure where you can kick this thing up really bright or you can kick it down really dark. So you can adjust your exposure. You can increase your contrast if you want more contrast, if you want less contrast, all these things that you might do in Photoshop. I'm here for the saturation at the bottom. I want to desaturate the color just because a desaturated image just looks more realistic than that. So I'm going to pull it down just a little bit. Okay, last effect in the stack is going to be depth of field. And this one, it's really up to you. I mean, if you get this right, you can make a really interesting image. If you have a lot of foreground, midground, background in your rendering, you can focus on the middle, you could focus on the foreground, or you could focus on the background. So let's see this. Let's just increase the amount. Okay, so down here under amount, I'm going to kick that way up, and everything's going to get really blurry. Okay, we'll go with it right about there. I don't have much in the background to really see. Let's click on the preview to update this. All right, that's looking pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to go with that setting. I'm happy with that. All right, so the last thing you would need to do is you would need to render the photo. And when you render this out, when you click on render photo, you have different resolutions that you could render out at. You could render out at desktop, you could render out at print, you could render out at poster. So email, desktop, print, poster. I'm just going to go with desktop, which is high def. And what I want to turn on is my alpha map. So that A is checked on. So that's going to render out 2 images. It's going to be the actual rendering, and then, so if we take a look at this, it's the rendering, which we looked at the beginning, and then it is the alpha, and you see the white is looking out of the glass. So it gives you that in Photoshop. It gives you that background area where you can select that. So it makes it a lot easier to do that selection in Photoshop. So I do want to see what this is actually going to look like. So I'm going to undo the alpha for now and just render it out, and then we'll see what it's going to look like. So it wants me to save it. So this is going to be my SketchUp Lumion. I'm going to make this a PNG. And I'm going to go ahead and click save, and then it's going to start rendering it out. All right, so that finished rendering, and it took 1:45 seconds, okay, which is real-time rendering. It's not instant, but 1:45 seconds is pretty quick, so that's awesome. All right, there you have it. There it is, our rendering. We started from scratch with 0. We had nothing, and we have this image, and I don't know how much time we spent on it, but not too much. So that's awesome. All right, give me a like. By giving me a like and subscribing, you help other people find these videos. So give me a like. Also comment, tell me why you like the video. All right, my head's gonna pop up in the upper left. If you haven't subscribed, click on that to subscribe. I'm gonna put 2 more videos in the upper right and the lower right. Be sure to check those out. All right, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next one.